Hello and welcome to Xeno Warrior Podcast Minisodes. My name is Vera and I'm joined, as always, by my two resourceful co-hosts, Katie.
Hello.
And Livy.
Hi.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm all right. Are you ready to do a deep dive into some Xenocentric things?
Yes,
Our topic today is back to Xena.
This thing you call Xena.
Yeah, today we're doing a patron-requested minisode about whoosh.org.
Now, you probably know about whoosh.org.
Are you talking to me? Because I do.
Yes, Vera,
Yeah, me too.
you might know of it. We generally mention whoosh in, I think, every episode of our podcast. I'm assuming.
I would be hard-pressed to find one where it is not mentioned or credited in some capacity.
Is Whoosh our fourth co-host?
Silent co-host. But yeah, if you don't know Whoosh, it is basically like one of the main repositories of Xena fandom and Xena information that still exists online.
Yeah.
And it has been an invaluable resource for us as we have gone about researching our podcast. And today, the patron who has requested this Whoosh minisode is none other than Kim Taborn, who is the founder and web mistress of Whoosh.
Yay, Kim!
Yay,
Thank
Kim.
you.
We see how this works, Kim. This is some synergy. Whoosh would like Xeno Warrior Podcast to talk about Whoosh.
Yes, and we shall. Kim, thank you so much for putting together this website, because literally without it, it would have made our lives so much harder. I mean, we used two main resources, I believe, when we did the podcast. One was whoosh.org and the other one was Jackson Upperco's site. But like, this was just absolutely crucial and such a huge part of our process.
Yeah, I'm trying to like think myself back to the glory days.
Oh my God.
When we were researching Xena episodes, and I feel like my process was I would watch the episode several times, take the notes, and then like my first stop would be Whoosh to kind of just get the context of like, what did fans know about this episode before it aired? Because Whoosh has, like, all the rumors, so that you can kind of, like, see that historical record of when they knew what they were anticipating. And then, of course, the reaction. Because Whoosh collects reviews, and that we would sometimes read from them. Because they would provide, like, useful information to us. And often the Whoosh contributors, like, knew stuff that we didn't. Like, I think especially, like, Whoosha films, that isn't really an area of expertise that we had before going into doing this podcast. So whenever we were talking about Whoosha films in Hong Kong cinema, like, Whoosh was involved in those conversations.
Okay, so similarly, map process, besides...
Love these conversations about process.
Besides spending, gazillion days writing the notes for the episode.
Notes.
But after that, I was like, let's go to Whoosh. And it was really helpful because there's so much organization, and I love an organization.
So organized.
Yes. So, like, if you hit an episode, you can immediately see, like, the episode number, the airing number, and all that stuff.
Like production order.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which was super useful for us to, like, detect when stuff was, like, filmed based on, like, let's say Lucy's injury or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And then if there were, like, any, like, factoids or tidbits about, like, the making of that specific episode, which was always super useful. And then whenever we podcasted about that episode, like, the number one thing was always that transcript.
Yeah.
That was, like, so
oh, my goodness.
useful. Because if it wasn't for that transcript, it would be me who had to transcribe everything. And so I was very, very very, very thankful for that beautiful transcript.
Yeah, and that was also helpful for like making GIFs. Like I would use
Yeah.
the transcript to figure out like what moment I was looking for, almost like where my time code
Time
should
code.
be.
Nice.
So yeah, we used Whoosh like, and also
Yeah.
like you're reminding me of this. I'd like
know,
forgotten
yeah.
like
It's been a hot minute.
the amount of Whoosh that we looked at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read like, and then at the bottom of each episode, there's like the commentary and links to other articles where that episode might be relevant, which is great because then I would read all of those articles that were like attached to the one episode.
Yeah, the website is really elaborate. Like there are so many different sections
Yeah.
in Whoosh. Like I often, like whenever I'm on there, I like find something new that I'm just like, oh wow, there's like half of a graphic novel that's like on Whoosh. Okay, I didn't know this was here. There are maps on Whoosh. You're just like, what? This is here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate that it is very indexed. So like if you're,
Yeah.
you know, like on a character page or if you're on an episode page, you can find like journal articles basically for any topic that you're interested in.
Kim sent us an essay she wrote, and there were some great little quotes in it. I wanted to read one which I feel like was part of our experience as well, which is that, first she says, we tried to capture the Xena experience and put it in a bottle called Wish.org, which is so true.
I like that one too.
Yeah. And the other one was that she said, even with Whoosh defunct since 2005, it is a museum for Xena and internet fandom.
Yes.
A moment of time captured in amber for the future to see an aspect of Xena fandom that might not be apparent in the future. I felt that way so much because it was part of our sort of, I don't know, job experience with the podcast to kind of describe how the fandom was at the time versus how it is now with our experience podcasting it. So the fandom has evolved, and that was where we were coming from, but we always wanted to kind of show how and sort of be respectful in a way to,
Yeah, absolutely.
to how it was back then, like
Yeah.
what they were thinking, what they were feeling.
Yeah. Well, I was struck by, like, there's descriptions of how the site came to be and, like, how all of the journals came to be. And I think we approach the show and, like, coming from where we are is, like, thinking about it in, like, one specific way.
Yeah.
Which is the subtext way, and that's kind of, like, the fandom now is that basically, or at least like our perspective of it was, but that it sort of became like this place where like Kim and other people wanted to come and like talk about these things, but like at the time it was really, it's like 1995, right? Things are in email listservs and stuff like that, and all the conversations were kind of getting lost. Or like people moved on from them with the way people post in like email groups. Like I remember being in like
I know, Yahoo groups.
And, like,
I
stuff like
had
that.
a few.
And the alt.tv, whatever that stuff. And like so like all these conversations were just like kind of getting lost, and like she just wanted like to put everything kind of in like this one place and like have a place to just talk about all this stuff that like she as a fan wanted to talk about, like Ubers and stuff like and all that kind of stuff. So that's that one there.
And also the fandom started with, of course, the, typical, like, heterosexual pairing. And the people who did sort of subtextually, like, ship Xena and Gabrielle were, oh my God, they were weird. And so they got trolled.
It's strange to imagine them as the minority.
Yeah.
Like that I think that is kind of the paradigm shift that it is hard for us coming in 2016.
No offense, no offense if this writer is listening right now, but I think it's crazy to find like on AO3 like a Xena Aries fic because it's like what?
Now that's like a fun little change of pace.
Okay, all right.
And now for something completely different. Hey.
No bisexuality eraser on this eraser. Get me my bisexual eraser. No bisexuality erasure on this podcast. Why can't I say that? You can leave all that in.
I will.
But yeah, that's yeah. And it was interesting for us too, I think, because it like you're saying, it's kind of this museum, this archive, this record
I love it.
of live action reactions to everything
Yes.
that's happening. Like, as a person, I don't, like, season 3 of Xena is, like, when it takes off and becomes the show that it is. But that is where on Whoosh you see everyone falling apart because they're people who can't handle, like, the rift and don't like it, or that's not the show they want, and, like, all that. Sort of that fighting that we're more used to.
Yeah, on Twitter now. Yeah, we're used to that on Twitter.
But of course, every fandom does have that.
Absolutely.
Those schisms.
But you
Martin
see
Luther on the door. Like, that's what happened.
Yeah,
Martin Luther
you
on
can
the
kind of
door.
see all this happening, and it's just right there for you in all these kind of very passionate essays and commentaries.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'd be like, what?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm trying to imagine, you know, I think if Whoosh didn't exist, we would have less, like, contextual understanding of, like, what the rift was like. Like, I feel like we know from, you know, at this point now we, you know, we're in the fandom. We know people who can try to explain it to us what it was like. But to have this kind of mass gathering of voices and feelings, and just, you know, seeing the fact that Whoosh needed to put out, like, whole issues full of like responses to something like the rift, or obviously like Friend in Need, which I think got at least 2 special issues just for it. I think they're called like Group Therapy 1 and 2. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure I would have felt it in the same like visceral way, like seeing people writing about their feelings like at the time, like fresh in the moment. I have this really vivid memory, Katie, of you being on the Whoosh forums like in 2016, right after we finished Friend in Need.
Oh no.
And you kind of like coming like out of your room being like, guys, we have a problem. I just found out what the fandom thought of Friend in Need.
It's not like, well, I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
Not to that
we
extent.
didn't know. You were reading quotes and we were like, oh.
It was
That's why we needed to have
you
20
know.
gazillion hours devoted
Yeah.
just to Friend in Need.
Yeah, because it was so fresh and so like, like it's not like we've experienced it in other shows and things. And I think we've said this 100 times though, like watching the show so differently and getting to that, knowing that it was going to end that way is very different.
I thought the rift was more of a surprise to me, because when we watched it, we were like, "Oh my god, this is the greatest show
just
ever!"
got
I wouldn't have known that people had like a problem.
Yeah,
with
like
it. It was
how
so
could you
juicy.
have so good? And it was like, "Oh, we hate this." Oops.
Yeah. Well, there's always people just like the more fun stuff, but you know. But like, the other thing is that like there's just so much range with all of the essays, and part of that was because of the like policy of no rejecting anything, which was like either it was in like a main journal issue, or it went into the like sort of other review site, the Xena Media Review, that became another like a weekly Xena roundup of news and articles. So like if you were going to write something, it was going to go either on Whoosh or into these other places, like for sure 100%. Everybody got to like step up, say their thing, and some of it's very serious, some of it's very emotional, some of it's like just really academic, like some of it's just really funny,
which
or,
kind of
parody
like
stuff.
You know, all the tones of Xena the show are kind of there in the International
Association of
Xena
Studies.
Studies.
That's like in excess, but it's I excess.
Right.
A new band in town.
And there are 102 issues, by the way.
Yeah.
All the way up through 2005.
Yeah. So like
2005
monthly,
became,
basically,
like, no more
from
updates anyway to the
96
site.
through 2005.
Yeah. So there's so much stuff. So if you've never been to Whoosh, like go to Whoosh now. They're going to read it and they're going to be like, all these girls just read these articles.
Yeah, suddenly they just see our dirty secret. Everything we said is on
No. But yeah. Oh, and also like I love that there was like tidbits and stuff from conventions and things.
Yes.
And because they had correspondence going off to conventions.
Yeah.
And we got
all around
like,
the world correspondence.
bits of news, and so you could kind of see like how production like they would say like, oh, this story's coming up, but then like Oh,
it
no,
does
didn't.
not.
Things like that.
Right, the Sappho, the mythical Sappho episode. Every season, Whoosh updates you. Where is the Sappho episode? Is it coming? Is it coming?
Yeah, and then that too, that like it was one of the first real big places where, you know, we have creators and people involved like going and reading it. And also loving it and not giving a shit that it exists. Well, actually probably loving that it exists, but like, and like not giving a shit in the sense that they weren't being like, please stop doing this, please stop like writing fanfic or writing about our show or like la-di-da. Like they were all into it to the point where it's in the show itself.
Yeah.
Right. That's soul possession.
A good old soul possession.
Maybe the only good thing about soul possession.
Yeah. I have admittedly, I'm a little funny about like some of the fan stuff, but I think I'm a little bit coming around. Well, at least in some capacity. But that is a well-deserved, I think, shout out within that episode.
And it's these penultimate
penultimate
Xena episode.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but
it
yes.
feels like the moment to give a direct shout out to the fandom.
Yeah.
So I like that Whoosh gets to be in that place of honor, and it's kind of clever that it is a journalist in a press conference, an academic press conference, which feels very fitting for Whoosh and its academic bent.
I think I prefer that over, you know, putting in like a Whoosh person as part of the fans and send in the clones or whatever.
Which I don't care for that representation as much. But this
sorry, just think about
clones.
Joxer fan.
There's a whole Joxer
I know.
issue.
Well, that's because Kim is very fair.
Very fair.
Okay.
And that's
More
how you
fair
gotta
than
be.
I.
That's how you gotta be.
Yeah.
I was going through all the special issues of Whoosh, being like, okay, I want to see, you know, if there's an all Joxer issue, like what else is there? And obviously,
An all Virgil issue.
you're gonna have to make that one, Vera. There's like an Aphrodite issue and an all subtext issue.
Nice.
And then I came to one and I was like, the heterosexual issue. Oh my god! And then I realized it was an April Fool's joke.
Oh.
And I was like, I got you, Kim. That's good.
That's funny.
So Whoosh invites all perspectives, but it's gonna make fun of you with that one.
Oh my goodness.
We asked Kim about the response from cast and crew to Whoosh, and she told us a funny story about her going to a convention and being invited to lunch by
my God, yes.
Carl Urban and Kevin Smith.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what?
It was kind of like the tone seemed like kind of like matter of fact. Like it was like, oh yeah, so I went to this convention.
I really appreciated, and I want to say, I loved this about Kim's answer to this question about like people asking about their involvement, cast and crew, or getting them involved, or like hanging out with them, and we had the same attitude. Like, it was just kind of like, no, keep them away from me, kind of. Because, number one, it was more about, like, editorial. Because, like, if you're friends with all these people, then it's going to affect how you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't publish this.
If you've gone to lunch with Carl Urban, you're not going to call him Kyle Urban.
Right.
Probably.
And, like, with, like, shows and stuff, I feel like I also want that monicum of distance, some kind of distance. Like, I even think Twitter is too close sometimes.
Oh yeah,
like
Twitter's way too
close. Like, I don't need some of the stress it brings. So I appreciated that, where it was sort of like it wasn't, these things happen because like this site was so big, and being a fan person involved in the show and going to events. Yes, these people are here and got to talk to them, et cetera, et cetera. But
you're not an arm of the show. You're not like the PR for the show. Exactly. You are the fandom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's its own independent thing. I love that about it.
Yeah, and I love that the Rob and Co, like, they obviously knew about it. They met with Kim, and they were cool. Like, they allowed the fan fiction to continue, and nobody was sending them
more than allowed.
lists.
Obviously, they encouraged it and ended up hiring Missy Good to write for the show. Another story kind of along the same lines as that Carl Urban and Kevin Smith story is that and I feel like we talked about this in our podcasting of the Jay Leno accident and the way that was this kind of wake up moment for the fandom, in that like literally Rob and I believe Steve Sears like went to a fan gathering that same night as the accident to talk to them about it and like make sure they were okay. And I feel like that's such an interesting, like, that was literally the moment where, like, you know, hand of God to hand of man, like, hello fans, we know you exist, we need you right now, we're in a crisis. I feel like that's really interesting.
Yeah. And also very classy.
Yes, very classy.
Yeah.
That they didn't forget the fans in that moment, some of whom witnessed the accident. So you understand why that is important, to make sure that they were okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim said she witnessed.
Yes.
Yeah. Kim, if you can remember what you had for lunch with Kyle Urban and Kevin Smith, please let us know.
Oh, that sounds like a good time. And they were like arguing about essays.
I'll actually read what in Kim's own words. She says they were very kind and pretended to be fanboys about Whoosh. They were arguing over some of the articles, which proved to me that they had actually visited the site and read some of them.
That's great.
I would have been like bright red blushing. That's something.
Yeah. That's a table.
Yeah.
Ooh. I wouldn't sit down at that table. I'd be like, I gotta go. Too handsome.
One point that Kim highlighted several times in the materials she sent to us, which I was very struck by, is that she wanted to make it clear that so many of like the things you associate with, you know, fully produced fandom, like merchandise and conventions, the Xena fans were doing before, as Kim put it, like capitalism caught up, like before creation started with their XenoCons. Like the fans were already holding Xena conventions. The fans were putting out their own merchandise and making stuff, making jewelry and making costumes and doing all the fan works, of course. And like, just kind of looking at the timeline for that, like, you know, like 1996, the show had only just started airing basically. And the fans were, like, that fandom sprung out of Zeus's head, like, fully formed.
Well, I mean, I guess not fully, because it took a while for the subtext to take over.
Well, that's true. I mean, clearly they were there from the start. But it is interesting. Yeah, there was a multiplicity of voices in that first iteration. Yeah.
It was also interesting to find out that Dreamworker was Kim's kind of
origin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's part of every essay on Whoosh. The author bit at the bottom, it's a little questionnaire that has their favorite episode, least favorite episode, and also first episode watched. And you can see where people came on board.
Yeah, wow. I feel it often tells you a lot about them, certainly. I think Dreamworker is a great episode to hook you.
To come aboard.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Makes sense.
And that was how it was back in the day, because it reminded me of watching The X-Files, because, like, if you weren't there at the start, you're not going to, like, you couldn't really... you had to pick it up where it was.
There were so many shows. You couldn't go back
to anything like on Netflix or whatever. So it was like my first X-Files I'll always remember was Eve.
Yeah.
Because that's the one that was on.
See, and mine was a newspaper clipping describing Scully's abduction because I didn't have cable. So I was like, oh my God, I want this. And I got that channel. And I was like, it's season 2.
We've always been like
Yeah,
I liked that. That struck me.
I also really admired Kim's attitude towards kind of the rifts that developed in fandom. Like, she's so just like, you know, water off a cat's back about that. I want to read you what she had to say about that. She would say, there would always be something that about a third of the fandom would be disappointed with and leave. But twice as many new fans would appear and find those same transgressions to be palatable.
Yeah. I think, that's just fandom.
Yeah, it's like the snowball of fandom.
Revolving door of
some,
fandom.
And then you gain
Yeah.
some.
Yeah, and now I'm just going off on tangents, but I always feel like it's like that thing where it probably is like maybe the 1/3 that like what they see at the very beginning.
It imprints.
And any deviation from that is like, this is bad.
Oh my God.
Not like shows evolve and become better.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I mean, I think that happens, like, that's like because of time, like you wait a year to see something and like in your mind it's that thing.
Yeah.
And then
it's not.
it never is.
Yeah. And I guess it's like worse, like if you're referring to stuff that's like based on like written material, or like a book adaptation as a show, then you have the original source that you can be like, well, it has to be like this or whatever. But if it's not, then you're just like,
include Tom Bombadil or I'm on strike.
what's that?
Sorry, Lord of the Rings reference.
Wow. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fighting about the Silmarillion, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, for the Amazon show.
Yeah. So, but if it does not have like a book that, you can read as a person while waiting for the next season, you're there speculating. You're there like posting the theories that you fall in love with versus like,
and all of us had those experiences.
Yeah, we've certainly been there.
We sort of say, oh, those people who like are like wedded to a certain paradigm and can't move on. Like, I've been that person.
Yeah.
You've been that person.
Yeah. Yep.
We've been on both sides of those divides.
All right, so when we did the podcast, one of our favorite things to reference was Ush's best of Xena list and worst of Xena list.
Yes.
So that was our friend and nemesis at times.
And nemesis. Indeed. Yes. I don't know. It just seemed to me like it was like here because it was on this site like definitive fandom ranking, not like a Entertainment Weekly's 10 best or whatever. It's like, who cares? Here's the fandom, and here are their votes. So this is
how it is.
We asked Kim about how that list worked, and she wanted to remind us that it represented their reading base as it was at that specific time, which is something I think to bear in mind. Is like that, as she says, Friend in Need was still very fresh in people's minds. Which is part of why it's right there at the top of the worst list. I mean, I imagine that could very well still happen if you polled people today. But I do see that as an important, this list isn't even an objective measure of what the fandom thinks. It was very much like 2003, how you feeling?
Yeah.
Oh, this reminds me of this really great quote that Kim said about the site. She said, "I felt like I was doing a public service by giving the fans a safe platform to express and articulate what they were feeling and perhaps better understand why they were feeling them." So there was a lot of discussion of A Friend in Need, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Working through it.
So what are the best and worst episodes?
Yeah. And also it's like the first thing you see. Like if you're gonna go to whoosh.org, isn't it like the front
it's on the
page?
main page.
Yeah.
It's funny. I always clicked like the episode guide part first.
Well, yeah, that's where we go. But yeah, if you just load whoosh.org, you basically when you scroll, the first thing you see is the 12 best Xena Warrior Princess episodes as voted by the fans.
What are they again?
They are
recap.
A Day in the Life, number one.
All right.
2, What Against an Army.
Okay.
3, Ides of March. 4, When Fates Collide. Very high ranking for When Fates Collide.
That's good.
5, Bittersweet. 6.
Ooh, remember the Gab Drag?
Remember the Gab Drag.
That was a thing that people discussed.
So clearly already by that point, people had metabolized that and could appreciate it. 6, Been There, Done That.
Okay.
7, Vera.
No.
It's The Quest.
No.
Sorry, Vera.
No.
8, Callisto. 9, is there a doctor in the house? 10, the debt number 2.
Interesting.
Oh, and 11, Return of Callisto. 12, The Price. So they're 12 and 12.
Wow.
It's pretty good.
It's a good list. You could argue about specific rankings in there,
Yeah.
but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially the top 5. They're quite good.
I feel like Xena
They're
is
quite good.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I appreciate about the show and the fandom is that like everybody knows which are the best.
Yeah.
Like, they are
Yeah.
just best.
And these, of course, have a specific bias, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. But they're also really good.
Yeah. Like, for example, is there a doctor in the house?
It's a specific bias for you?
Yeah, because I wouldn't put it in the top 12.
Yeah, I don't think I would either.
But it's got a great sequence.
It's got a good part. I mean, that's sort of like the quest as well.
Well, I was going to say, you know why the quest is there? Because of the part that's there.
But I wouldn't put it like, it's pretty high up.
Yeah, these are
episode.
great, memorable episodes.
I
but
just don't know if it's in the top 10.
I don't think they're more than the sum of their parts, unlike some others.
All right, just replace it with the abyss.
Oh,
Exactly.
That's a good part.
So the 12 worst, and we do take issue with this. Of course. I actually didn't remember. I thought Friend in Need was at the top. It is not.
No.
I wish it were, actually, because number 1 is Married with Fish
Of course it is.
Are you reading the best of list right now?
It's the Xeno Warrior podcast best of list.
I think do you think we've rehabilitated it in any capacity?
I hope so.
That was our only goal.
That was our only goal with
this
the
podcast.
So I hope so. I hope there's someone out there whose mind has changed. That's all I need.
I think there are. When we actually did it, we did learn that we did change some
We
people's
only changed
minds.
one mind.
If it was,
it makes
yeah,
it all
exactly.
worth it. So number 1, Married with Fish Sticks. Number 2, Friend in Need. Number 2. Number 3, King Kong.
Okay, yeah, it was.
Bad. I hate other ones more, but 4, Key to the Kingdom, definitely terrible. Definitely hate it more than anything else on this list so far. 5 is Lifeblood.
Oh,
Wow.
well.
That's just a weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 is Ulysses.
Yeah.
That one's bad.
Real bad. 7 is Back in the Bottle.
Oh yeah. That should be number one.
Should be number 1. 8 is Friend in Need. 9 is Purity. I would put Purity and Back in the Bottle at the top of a worst list.
Absolutely.
In a heartbeat. 10 is Liar Liar, Hearts on Fire.
Wow. All right.
11, King of Assassins, which is the Joxer's brother app. Again, okay. And 12 is Punchlines, which I like, Justice for Punchlines.
Wow.
Huh. Interesting.
And for these two, if you go to Whoosh, you can see lots of collected journal articles for each of these episodes, even Punchlines. So someone has written the Whoosh article about Punchlines. Yeah.
To each their own.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
But I liked that as like a measurement going through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just been so nice for us to have this kind of yardstick of like, what did Whoosh say? What does Whoosh say?
It would be interesting to sort of do like a new sort of like polling of the fandom, like
interesting.
now. To create.
I would love to know how these
This-
opinions
yeah.
have changed. Has
Or have
Punchlines
they?
been accepted?
How do you run such a big poll?
Yeah, right? It would be really interesting. Well, Kim likes to organize it. Kim.
Yeah, I do think this is it's what's interesting about fandom, which is, it's existed for decades.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe since the beginning of there being any kind of media.
Yeah, of course. It didn't start
Any
with
kind
Star
of
Trek.
storytelling. The, like, Homer fangirls. I don't know. But, like, with the internet, fandom suddenly had this amazing way of organizing itself and gathering, but it also then is up against this kind of, the ephemeral, web hosting thing.
Yeah.
Which is, if you put your fan site on GeoCities, the only way to see it now is via the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
And if the Wayback Machine didn't take a picture of that, that page is gone forever.
We ran into a lot of that throughout, and consistently Whoosh is still there and being awesome and a great resource. But yeah, the dead links and stuff throughout time for fandom is really depressing.
It is. And some of that you understand. I mean, I've definitely created things for fandom that I want to bury deep, deep, deep in a dark internet hole where no one can find them. But at the same time, I think we all feel that this is our community and you want to preserve it for, the people who come next. Someday someone's going to be doing a VR recreation of Xena, and they're going to be like, we have this historical document, whoosh. And also this historical document, Xena Warrior podcast.
Oh my God.
Let's study it to see what they were saying.
Yes.
The hosting up then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is something, there are certainly a lot of fandom organizers now who are trying to, find ways of centralizing fandom and preserving stuff. But fandom is so different now than it was in the time of Whoosh and Xena. It lives on social media. There isn't that centralized hub where people gather. You wouldn't have a site like Whoosh that has articles and news and a message board and fan fiction and just every single kind of thing you could be interested in as a Xena fan lived there. That just isn't around now. Now you're type in I want my I'm trying to what's up fandom people are into these days, guys. I'm so out of it.
What do people like? No.
What do people watch?
No, I mean,
Paw Patrol?
We watch stuff. Paw Patrol?
You want some Paw Patrol fanfic, Vera?
Fuck yeah. Gotta go to Tumblr.
Well, the first thing that came to my head was obviously disco.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's great,
huge.
Well, Star
That
Trek.
Star Trek
Well,
just
yeah.
spans every single thing that we've talked about and further back and more to the fact where you have, something like that. You got to go to the school that's got the cult fandom study archive that's got zines from the 70s that you can look up because that's the only way to see that stuff.
Wow.
Because that's just not online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or people have been scanning some of that stuff.
No, I mean, people are there are so many people out there who are trying to preserve stuff. But yeah, I'm what is going to happen to my Tumblr meta, Is that do I have to try to preserve that for the historical record?
Tumblr, but it's on a drive that I'm going to lose or it's going to go kaputs.
And obviously for us, we want to, always have our podcast up for people to, and, you can always go through our Twitter feed to see what things were like in the magical heyday of us doing the finale and putting up those little GIFs, trigger warning GIFs for people. I'm glad this still exists and you can experience it, though it actually isn't that easy to find it. You just have to scroll
I know, it's not the
back
best
and back
searching,
and Twitter. I mean, this is my problem with social media as the place where fandom lives, is that it actually isn't that user friendly. It's hard to find stuff if it isn't new. So yeah. It's rough. We are very grateful that Whoosh is here.
Yeah, we are. And then it's I just really love how Kim called it a museum. And I love museums, so.
This belongs in a museum.
Yay.
I love an archive, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Kim, so very much for having the idea to create this, for actually doing it, for galvanizing people to contribute. I mean, it was everyone's hobby. It was not anyone's profession. No one was
Right.
getting paid. It was just
No.
like people who loved Xena, and they just wanted to kind of support and show their love. And I totally get that. And you did such an amazing job, and it has paid. I mean, it's paid forward theoretically because
Yeah.
you know we used it so much. Everyone can still go there, and if you haven't ever visited it, please do.
Yeah.
There's so much.
You'll be reading for years. There's so much. Seriously,
Yeah.
like so many articles, so many.
And also, Kim, thank you for supporting the podcast,
Yeah,
which
thank
is,
you.
Absolutely.
is really cool when we first realized you were a listener.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're honored.
And thank you, everyone who has contributed to whoosh.org in the past, who has written all these things for us to read now.
Edited them, organized
Yes,
them.
yes,
All those
yes.
people behind the scenes.
All those people who went to cons and took notes, like little reporters. It's so great. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think that's it for us.
All right. So yeah, go read everything on Whoosh. We are, as usual, on the internet at xenowarriorpodcast.com. You can find everything you'd like there. Links to subscribe and links to all our social media. So we are on Apple Podcasts, so you can go there and subscribe and rate, leave reviews. We always love to read those. We're on Twitter at XenoWarriorPod, and then the other social medias, Xeno Warrior Podcast. And we're on Patreon, so it's patreon.com/Xeno Warrior Podcast. And our next Lucy Lawless IMDb experience, we'll be talking about Lucy in Salem and her very big purple coat.
How many Muppets had to die, Countess Marburg?
So yeah, that'll be fun. So check that out.
Yeah, and I don't remember if you mentioned it, but we're on Spotify, and I wanted to say hello to all our new listeners who found us on Spotify
Cool.
and just are listening to the podcast. That's crazy and
Oh my
amazing.
God!
Yeah.
Hello.
They're probably not listening to
don't
this
know.
right now.
No,
In
they'll
fact, probably
hear this 2
people
years
stop
from
listening
now.
at this point anyway, because it's always like the end of the episode. But whatever. Hi, guys.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the power.
The passion.
The podcast.